Coming up this week on the Course of Life podcast, it was a Birdiefest big time in Vegas. The dice were rolling. We had a familiar face up at top, a couple other familiar faces making runs. It was an interesting finish. We'll get to it all, plus everything we're tuned into outside of the world of sports includes a Squid Game update and something very seasonal as well. This week's guest is long driver and friend of the show, Josh Koch. He had an amazing showdown with Bryson DeChambeau. I don't know if you've heard of him. So we talk about his week with Bryson and break everything down at the World Long Drive event, plus our football recap, little baseball, and we always end with food. And all of it is brought to you by our friends at City Bonfires. It is absolutely that time of the year. Mike, we had a delightful cold front come through Texas this past weekend. I'm talking like high temperature, around 70 degrees this past weekend.
We're having that right now.
Oh, it's the best. It's that time of year when you get that first real crisp fall vibe for the people who live down south right now. For the people who are up north, you're already seeing amazing color, but it's definitely fire pit and bonfire season. That's exactly what City Bonfires provides. Check them out at citybonfires.com and use code COLFIRE to save 10% off any order on the website. It's a portable, reusable bonfire, super easy to light. You can take it with you anywhere you go. It's an awesome way to have a nice, safe, easy, small, compact fire and set the mood wherever you are. Again, City Bonfires and citybonfires.com. Promo code COLFIRE to save 10% off of your City Bonfire today.
Interwebs, and welcome to Course of Life, part of the Morning Read Podcast Network. We are proud to be presented by our friends at Desert Fox Golf and Toasty Snacks. I'm Michael, he's Alex. And Alex, it was a absolute birdie fest at the CJ Cup at the Summit in Las Vegas, out in the desert. We had 10 under par rounds. We had 11 under par rounds.
Oh, yeah.
This was phenomenal. And then on Sunday, it felt like 2016 with Rory and Rickie playing together in the final pairing.
Yeah, big time throwback vibes. Seeing Rory McIlroy and Rickie Fowler in the final pairing of the PGA Tour. Something I'm not sure if we ever really thought we might see again. Good to see Rickie back in form, though, against Rory, who ended up getting the win. But yeah, Birdiefest indeed. I mean, we picked guys on Twitter this week, Mike, that finished like 14, 15 under par. I don't even think I saw them hit a shot all week. They were so far off the lead, and yet they were making birdies of their own. It was basically like par 65 out there. It's the desert. Conditions were quiet, and these guys were just going absolutely nuts all week.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy the whole week, starting with that 11 under par round to start on Thursday.
Robert Shred there got it going real fast, and then we quickly learned like, oh, okay, so there's no trouble here. Like even if you hit it in the desert, you can still save par. There were hole outs from the other fairway from Joaquin Niemann, and like you said, it like. The quota was 8, 9, 10 under par when we got to the weekend. Rickie Fowler had 10 under his own on Saturday. But listen, if you're only shooting a few under on a course like this on a Sunday, that's not enough. So he got passed by Rory. The home course hero, Colin Morikawa, made a big run as well, too. But
he did. I had a chance there on Sunday with him.
I thought you did, too. Yeah, he looked good. Thought he might have been able to post enough, but Rory held him off. And again, when there's just not a lot of trouble, it's pretty easy for a guy like Rory to roll and finish with pars and birdies when he needs them. One-stroke victory for him, getting his 20th win on the PGA Tour. And really my overarching theme for this kind of new venue, new time, seeing these guys at a venue like the Summit, it just reminds me when you put PGA Tour players on a course like this that wasn't kind of like inherently designed or drawn up to be played by the world's best golfers, they will just absolutely murder just your like classic typical resort course that you and I know. It was not enough of a challenge this week.
I mean, in case you didn't realize that professional golfers play golf professionally for a reason, because I don't know, say they're good at the game. This kind of proved it for you. These guys are awfully good at the game they play every day. Can we talk about Rory as well and his reaction to winning 20 wins? He's got a couple more years till he earns lifetime exemption on tour.
Yes.
I mean, his turnaround from the story we've been hearing a lot after his win now this weekend was how Saturday night at the Ryder Cup, he was ready to put his clubs away in the garage and not pick them up for the rest of the year. Sunday at the Ryder Cup, he was crying and talking about how much he loved the game and loved his team and loved this event, and decided that he was going to come and play, and then crying after winning again on Sunday, saying that he made the right decision. I mean, it's just kind of this crazy roller coaster we're seeing out of Rory. And there's this talk, too, that, Rory has more wins and more majors than Phil Mickelson did at this point in his career. And, of course, Phil had some of the best 30s that any professional golfer than have. Do we think this could be the moment where Rory turns it all back on again and we see this huge tear again out of him?
It's potential. It's interesting. You go through that emotional roller coaster. I don't know. Maybe now that he's a daddy, is he like an over emotional parent now? And just he's got the big picture vibe for everything in life. He seems that way where it's like, I realized I was trying to chase something and become a player I wasn't. Bryson. Bryson. And he realized that, what he has is enough. It's all right there, he says. He doesn't need to chase that extra 20 or 30 yards. He's already long. He's already an amazing ball striker in his own right. So, yeah, if he flips a switch and maybe goes to Rory 2.0, it's funny that this Rory, who maybe you could argue was kind of slumping a little in the past few years, he's still picking up a win, every 6-9 months. It's unbelievable. Like, even when he doesn't have his best, he captured the players just a couple of years ago. We forget, too. Still looking for that green jacket to complete the Grand Slam for him. But yeah, Rory 2.0 in his 30s could be a lot of fun if he turns it up a notch.
I'm really curious. I'm thinking back to when we were reading about Tiger Woods and how he constantly was unhappy with his game and wanted to keep changing it in everything he did. And I think of Rory now, and I think Rory's taking a more mature approach where he's backing off from wanting to change everything. And maybe now he's just looking at how do I tweak to perfect what I'm already really good at, instead of going back to the drawing board and doing everything a different way to do it that way.
Right. And you just gotta get back to the basics. Like Rory McIlroy, just swing thoughts or anything or situation aside, just throw a golf club and a ball in front of him. He's just a top 10, top 15 golfer in the world. Just with that and work from there with what you already know is great. So
you know what I want to see Rory do? Last thought on this is I want to see Rory grow back those curly locks, and then it's just I just can't. Then I'm already on the Rory bandwagon. I've always been a Rory fan. And then just like, I'm going to leave my wife and I'm going to go marry him if he brings that.
Yes. And for those out there who maybe are kind of have a Rory crush or something like that, or only know adult Rory, go ahead and search the old Rory McIlroy pictures of when he was a teenager. It's quite a look indeed.
Yeah, it really was. Let's talk about the LPGA Tour, because they got to have a playoff in the dark.
Yes, it was the Aramco Series, kind of little team event thing going on. And I really only caught up with it at the end, but I really just kind of want to get to the vibe that was created at the end and ask you if you could see this really happening more often. We first saw this scenario, remember, in the match. The original match, the first one with Phil and Tiger.
Never ending.
Got very late at Shadow Creek, and fortunately, they had the 19th hole ready. It was a little par 3 that they had lit from green to tee. A similar scenario arrived on the LPGA Tour, and I think they're pretty prepped for this. They started lighting up the green and the tee, and they played straight up in the dark on this par 3. It kind of makes you wonder, though, if we are really going for cool, kind of made-for-TV moments in professional golf, is this something you could see more often, where tournaments intentionally maybe lay out the last hole or two and have a finish in the dark, knowing you can play lit golf as late as you want?
I hope so, because there's nothing I want to see more than the final scene from The Legend of Bagger Vance played out week after week. And I'm not being sarcastic. I mean, that is, you think of that scene, that was just really cool. All the cars pull up and turn their lights on. We can have that now every week on tour, and that would be amazing.
It's an interesting thought. I mean, whether it's even you light 17 and 18 of a tour stop, or again, if you just create that separate little 19th hole, you just tuck away a little 150-yard par 3.
I love that idea of having this little hole tucked off to the side with lights on it, where you play maybe 17, 18 a couple times, and then the sun's going down, and then you move yourself over if the playoff's still going, which creates even more drama. And you go, okay, we're playing 19 until we got a winner, just over and over and over again.
Hey, PGA Tour marketing team, I know you've you've denied us for credentials to tour events, but we're giving grade A ideas right here, right now. There's more of these where that came from. If you're listening,
you know what? If the PGA Tour doesn't want to hear this, because we know the LPGA is doing it now, so they're obviously in something. That's why they're getting more viewers than the PGA Tour is getting on a lot of these events right now. Then we can always go over to the European Tour because they are always in on this stuff.
All right, I'm going to pitch this idea to Cheyenne Knight. We'll get back to you and get the players' thoughts. Well, I love this.
Let's also now go ahead and talk about what's happening this next week in Japan. It's the ZoZo Championship.
I was wondering where they were going to field this. Last year, they had it at Sherwood temporarily, which is where they used to have Tiger Woods' Hero Challenge event. So they're back in Japan now. Tough, tricky travel situation for a lot of these guys who played in the CJ Cup. If they're getting over there, I don't know exactly. The field looks pretty good looking through who's there. So a lot of the guys are making that trip, and shout out to them for doing that. But good to see this tournament back in its homeland as well, too. We remember the famous Hideki Matsuyama Tiger Woods duel a few years ago in Japan, where Tiger came out on top and defeated Hideki. Patrick Cantlay defending him. Curious to see who gets it done this week, though. An interesting little spot in the calendar for the PGA Tour.
Yeah, you know who I'm looking forward to play together on Sunday, though, because just the storyline is the best here, would be gold medalist at the Japan Olympics, Xander Schauffele.
Sure.
Versus 2021 Masters champ and top-ranked Japanese golfer Hideki Matsuyama.
Right, because you remember in the Olympics, Schauffele walked away with gold. Matsuyama fighting tooth and nail down the stretch, was not able to medal successfully. Shout out Rory and CT Pan there for getting those. But yeah, Hideki probably looking to exact a little bit of that. I know he doesn't like that he came up short in that spot. So this is a good spot for him. Man, that's going to be one of those where it's going to be really hard to avoid betting Hideki on your card. Regardless, our picks will be on Twitter Wednesday night. I'm at Course of Life 1, and you're at MWRINC to see who we go with this week's ZoZo Championship.
Let's switch over to Tuned In, where we share what we're tuning into outside of the world of sports. It's October, Alex. That means it's horror film time of year.
It's scary. My wife has been watching nonstop spooky movies right now. I feel like I've gone through everything already, and we're only halfway through October.
Well, I mean, I don't watch a lot of scary movies, but I do watch films that fall under the horror bandwagon. So, like, what's a good example of that? Taika Waititi's What We Do in the Shadows, always a classic. And I actually got to watch now for the first time Francis Ford Coppola's version of Bram Stoker's Dracula. Classic as well, too. I mean, Gary Oldman, Winona Ryder, Anthony Hopkins, Richard Grant, Cary Ells, and a horrendous Keanu Reeves doing had to be one of the worst British accents I have ever heard.
Noted. I'll look out for the horrible accent. I love a good horrible accent in film. So close the curtains, lights out for that one. Bram Stoker's Dracula. Scary movie season indeed. One thing that's getting pretty scary. Let's get back to the Squid Game update. I told you I'm watching the hottest show in the world right now. I'm 5 out of 9 episodes in, so I'm right in the thick of it. One game, so it's all about these life and death games, Mike, on Squid Game. I don't have to spoil anything, but one of them that came up that was a life and death game. It was teams of 10, and it was tug of war. I don't know if this is bringing you back to gym class days of your younger years, but what are your memories of tug of war, and how are you at the game?
If I'm being honest, I don't really remember playing it at all. I'm sure I did, but I have no specific or even general memory of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of these throwback kid games that you haven't seen in like over 20 years that get brought up in the show. There's a few more of them where that came from.
If this show doesn't end with them climbing the crow mag to hit the button at the very top with snow falling down on them like we got to see all the time on Guts, then this show isn't worth it for me.
That would be quite the ending indeed. I hear there's some sort of twist coming the next few episodes. It may or may not have to do with the old man. For those who have already watched, they're laughing right now because I'm about to be in for it. But we're 5 episodes in. I don't know how I would fare in tug of war. They had this amazing strategy, the winning team full of main characters. I'll let you watch it and see for yourself. But I don't really possess the upper body strength needed to be a dominant tug of war player. I'm smart with my body weight, but I'm not strong. I'll just say that straight up.
That's all right. That's all right. I can't wait to hear who dies next.
Yes.
I really, like I've said last week, I'm going to say it again. I really don't care.
Yes, all we need to know, Mike, we started with 200 and something in the game. We're down to about 80 right now. So it's
okay. So we actually know some names out there. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Gotcha. We literally, we put a ticker every time someone dies. We just bring the head count down once. It's a very mean show, really. It is.
All right, let's get into this week's guest, Alex. How far can you hit the ball? What's your distance off the tee?
You know what? I can say safely that I have had a couple of 300-yard drives in my life, but average. But average. Okay. Average is really like 230, 240. Let's be real. I'm not hitting it further than that.
I know that there is no way you would be able to come even halfway close to this week's guest drives because he was bombing them out there past Beefy Bryson himself.
He was. Yeah. Shout out to Josh Koch, this week's guest. He had himself a week, and there was a lot of headlines about Bryson being here in Mesquite at the event. Really cool to get this perspective, a little behind the scenes stuff on Josh's week with Bryson, how Bryson was treating the event, and kind of what he's doing to help expose long drive. We love watching these guys. This is a really cool conversation taking us behind the scenes a few weeks ago with long driver Josh Koch.
That's right. And we'll get into that conversation with him again, because this is his second time on the podcast in just a minute. But first, as always, want to let you know this interview is brought to you by Desert Fox Golf, our friends of the show and the makers of the Phone Caddy. The Phone Caddy lets you strap your phone right onto the side of your golf cart so it's easy to view and use all day long. No more fumbling around the dark spaces of your golf cart, dropping your phone on the seat, or even worse, onto the grass as you drive away. The Phone Caddy keeps you locked in safely so you can stay locked into your round. And Alex, we're less than 70 days to Christmas or something like that.
I mean, I'm hearing this panic about shopping and shipping and timelines, and I think I think I'm going to buy into it and start shopping. I think it's time.
Now is the time to go get yourself a Phone Caddy for all of your friends and put them in all of their stockings, because they're going to love you forever. They're going to buy rounds of golf for you if you get them a Phone Caddy. So it's a worthy investment. And Alex, I can save you and all your friends 10% right now. Wow. Right now. Promo code is Course of Life at their website, desertfoxgolf.com. You save 10% off your purchase of a Phone Caddy, including their patriotic line, where you can get something to show support for a police officer, firefighter, or veteran or active duty service member in your life. Again, that's promo code Course of Life. You just got to head over to their website, desertfoxgolf.com. 10% off with Course of Life. So head on over there. Get all your gifts for Christmas. desertfoxgolf.com.
Next up, we got a friend of the show coming back to join us here in 2021. We originally had him on last year. There has obviously been a lot of momentum behind World Long Drive. We talked about Bryson DeChambeau dueling against the world's best, including this guy, Josh Koch, joining us again on the Course of Life. Josh, how you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Definitely. It's great to have you back on. Like I said, it was an amazing week that got put together in Mesquite. Again, for anyone who doesn't remember our previous conversation, Josh, not only a world long driver, but hitbombs.com is the URL, one of my favorite URLs in the game. That's him. Obviously does some great teaching and coaching as well, too. So let's talk about your 2021, because it's definitely different than maybe the average long driver or competitive golfer for that matter, because you definitely had some adversity and injury setback and whatnot. Just kind of reset the beginning of 2021 and how things started and how where we got to where we are today.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting year. The long drive circuit started back in March. So we actually opened in Mesquite, Nevada. Mm-hmm. And, I came out pretty hot. Speeds were very fast. And unfortunately, I finished runner-up in the first event. And then from there, we went to Memphis, end of April. Once again, speeds were, the fastest I've ever been. And unfortunately, I missed the grid there in the quarterfinals, and as I call it, self-destructed, and was eliminated. And then we went from there to North Carolina in May, and I won in North Carolina, and I also got hurt in North Carolina. So, and to be honest with you, there was a couple different things that led up to me actually getting hurt. I think it was just sort of the straw that broke the camel's back at that event. So, going back earlier in the year, there was a couple different instances where I bumped my head on, first with the trunk of my car, getting my TrackMan out of it. And then there was another instance where I was actually trying to get my daughter out of the car, and she tried getting away from me. And as I went to get her, I drilled my forehead on the top of the door frame.
Man, those elusive girls, you know, they're quick.
Yeah. So that was kind of the start. And then when I was competing back in May, warming up, I felt something, and I'm like, oh boy, this isn't good. And I kind of just fought through the day, which looking back, I shouldn't have. I mean, it was good because I ended up winning, but
right.
I was sore. And then what ended up happening was I ruptured a disc in my neck, and then my arm went dead. So that when the disc protruded, it went into the nerve canal and shut my arm off. And so I had some nerve damage in my arm. And so for 3 months, I wasn't touching the club. I wasn't doing anything, which was kind of frustrating because I was hitting some really fast speeds at the time. I was, I think, right around 155, 227 was the fastest I kind of clocked out on a TrackMan. Everything was kind of lining up to have a showdown at Worlds. So, I had doctors telling me they wanted me into surgery, and I kind of stubbornly fought them on that. And because I heard rumblings. Everyone in the long drive world kind of knew this might have happened with Bryson. And so I was like, all right, the one time he hits, I'm injured. I'm not going to let that happen. So I did everything in my power to get back. So I started middle of August, to be honest with you, just hitting balls again, not even really going through speed stuff. So I felt like a fighter on a short camp, trying to prepare against these some of the fastest in the world. So
yeah, and I mean the Worlds is not only definitely the Super Bowl event, but especially when you throw the idea around that Bryson's going to be there, it definitely gave you all the more motivation. I'm curious, you'd heard rumblings. You said how long had that idea been thrown around? I know you talked to Bryson as early as last year. You were there at Winning Foot for part of his U.S. Open victory and whatnot. But when did that idea kind of first come around? We've seen him push these limits and increase his speed and distance when it comes to being a PGA Tour player. When did we first actually think he'd be entering a competition like this?
Yeah, I knew the thought started kind of actually. Kyle and Bryson, they started kind of playing with the idea. I know last year that was the earliest I had heard it, and then earlier this year, I would say probably about May, June-ish. I don't know the exact dates of those, the timeline, but it was around then, I think it really started to become a reality, and they were waiting on clearance from the PGA Tour to actually release Bryson. Anytime you go outside of the PGA Tour, I know players have to get some type of release to be able to go compete elsewhere. So I think that was the big hang up. But like I said, I was like, with COVID being a tough year last year and World Long Drive, our Golf Channel pulling the plug on what we know as the World Long Drive. I was like, man, I gotta do whatever I can to try to take advantage of this opportunity.
Nice. Yeah. And it was the PLDA Worlds, which just happened late September into October. So let's get to some questions about the event specifically for kind of people who don't understand or are looking from the outside into long drive now. Explain tangibly. I could see how emotional and proud you were of what Bryson was able to do to support and create awareness for the event. But explain tangibly what that did for the audience and the long drive circuit in general.
Yeah. So I've competed in 2018 at the World Championships. I competed in 2019, made television, which was awesome. None of those compared to what we actually experienced this last event. And, everything from the lead up of the buzz to him showing up on the first day of competition and having over 2,500 fans on site already, which is unheard of at the early days of a long drive event.
Nice.
It was the first time a long drive event has ever charged admission, which is crazy, because it's such a opportunity for the sport to actually make some money. And so, there was a lot of fans, and the thing that I think was crazy, and, the media paints a perception of Bryson. And I can tell you that from being around him just inside competition, watching how he does things, I had dinner with him 4 nights in a row last week. It could not be further than the truth of what people kind of make him out to be. And I was actually blown away more at the person he was and how generous he was with his time, and at the end of the day, he really had no financial incentive to show up and hit, right? I mean, we're hitting for pennies on the dollar for what compared to what he makes. He had his whole team out there. Probably cost him more money to go out there, than he actually made competing. And, now do I think selfishly he's probably doing it to help him get faster? 100%, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think at the end of the day, I think he recognized, hey, as a sport, that has influenced him to keep this thing alive. He can help us out. And I think that's kind of why he wanted to jump on board.
Love that. I'm curious. I'll give you a little either or question. What do you think surprised you more personally, Josh Koch? Yourself making that final day or Bryson making the final day? What was a bigger surprise to you personally?
Ooh, that's a good question. I had, to be honest with you, I had high expectations for both. You can go back and look at some of my posts on Instagram. I said it before we even started, weeks before the competition. I thought he was going to contend. And people think that, just kind of assume he wasn't fast. I mean, he was putting up 219 ball speed. I mean, that is fast, even relative to long drive standards.
Yeah.
And plus, he's got a good swing. He hits a good ball, a nice flat ball flight. Even myself, I had expectations, that I was going to, make it far, even with the injury. So I don't know, it's a tough call. I think, looking back at it, I think that the bigger surprise, honestly, it was that, I could have been in surgery back in May and I was hitting at a world championship, end of September. So that was the bigger surprise to me.
Yeah, it was. It was great to see your name floating and staying on the leaderboard all week because, I'd seen and understood what your 2021 had looked like. So I was like, oh, okay, Josh Koch is not hitting bombs. He's hitting a lot of bombs. And this is a good time to do so. So it was great to see that performance from you. During the week, one thing that came up, let's educate people on long drive and the win specifically. I noticed lots of players, including Bryson, said that it was specifically a good win for him. Talk to me about, the win that week, what impact that plays and how that worked well for a driver like Bryson and how it worked for yourself as well.
Yeah. So the first day, it was straight downwind, and Bryson, Kyle, Justin James, they all hit very late in the afternoon. And by that point, the wind was, it was howling downwind. So you saw some big numbers, 455. I think Kyle hit. Bryson might have hit 430 or something there. Yeah. Justin James, same thing. Versus that morning of the first day, long ball was 402. And I think that's where a lot of people misunderstand that. Not understanding that different groupings throughout the day is going to call for different wind, and different wind is going to produce different distances. So, and that was really the only day that was like that. And then the second and third day were kind of the opposite. So it was howling into us. And in long drive, I kind of likened to the wind because I know that it exposes certain hitters. It requires you to actually flight it a little bit more. You actually have to hit more of a strategic golf shot. And in that case, speed becomes less of. But a lot of times the faster players might have trouble because they end up spinning the ball a little bit more into the wind, which we know that isn't good. So, like I said, coming from playing background, I was kind of, licking my chops. I like to see that because I know guys will fold in those conditions. So, and then the last day, it was, for the most part, I think it was pretty much straight off the left, maybe a little bit. And it was kind of swirling. Mesquite is an interesting grid. it's a couple of football fields and soccer fields that are surrounded by mesas, and above the mesas, there's a lot of stuff going on, right? But you can't really feel that. So, the point is, wind was swirling a lot that last day.
Yeah, that ball gets up there for sure. So it feels all the elements. And yeah, check out the YouTube videos and the content from that week as well too on the PLDA website. And Josh, you put out some awesome YouTube videos of you going behind the scenes. I know you did a lot of great recording and spent some great time with Bryson. And you had a very kind of emotional recap video with him as you guys were just walking the grid after it was all said and done. Talk to me about kind of the comments that he made. One thing that really struck me is he said that this could offer a new heartbeat to long drive. And I really like the way he said that in words simply, but talk to me a kind of about the thought process behind putting that video together at an emotional time.
Yeah. So, we got them competing, and to be honest with you, you guys might have heard Kyle Berkshire talk about it, but that final 16, with all due respect to all of our servicemen and everyone, in harm's way, that are truthfully fighting a war. We say this very lightly, but it did feel kind of like a battle out there.
Yeah.
What I mean? In an athletic sense. The whole week, like I said, I didn't know if my neck was going to hold up. I didn't know what was kind of going on. I came out with so much adrenaline. And like I said, as a competitor, you put everything you have out there, right? And you recognize the heat of the moment. You're live on YouTube with 50 to 100,000 people watching. There was over 2,500 people in the stands, people standing. It was sold out. And the energy was so electric out there. And you just felt like, in a good way, everyone wanted to rip each other's heads off. Like I said, all in a positive, competitive way. And that played into it. You know what I mean? Because I feel like, the energy of the competitors, they fed off the crowd, and then the crowd fed off the competitors. And it was really just an electric arena that we were in, and not feeling that in a while, and truthfully not knowing when Golf Channel pulled the plug on it, if I'd ever feel that again or experience that.
Right.
And it was so good, because the last couple of years, one of the big things I did was I wanted to make sure that no matter what event was being hosted in the long drive world, I'd show up and support it. And hopefully, if I can attract one other person to show up because I showed up, I did my job. And the point of that was just to mainly keep the sport flowing, keep some life in it, keep people excited about it, with the hopes that one day it would get back to exactly what we experienced this last week. And that's kind of what happened. And, and spending time around Bryson, I saw how genuine he was. I saw how he wanted to help us out. And it just, like I said, man, it just, at the end, it just kind of all hit me. And I'm like I was just kind of overwhelmed. One, I was back out hitting. I didn't know if I'd ever hit again back in May. Two, we're getting help from arguably the most popular golfer in the planet right now, next to Tiger. And he's on our side, and he's going to battle for us as athletes. And then, obviously the emotion of just competing, and that's where, when I made the Instagram post, I just kind of spoke from the heart, and, it kind of, a lot of people were moved by it, which, like I said, was cool. It wasn't my intention. My intention was just to speak from the heart and kind of put it out there. So I'm an emotional person, man. I mean, in a good way. I think, stuff like that, I have a big heart. One of the biggest things I try to do is try to inspire, young people, kids, people all over the world. And it was cool because, when we started getting that spotlight from Bryson, I was getting DMs from people all over the world. In particular, I had two young girls from Canada.
I saw that. There was a girl writing to you about her club speed, and she was boasting about how far she was ripping it. And Josh, I didn't expect to be scrolling through your stories and having chills down my arm, but that happened. It was really cool to see that motivation tapping all the way to the kids too.
And it's crazy because, I'm a nobody. That's the reality of it. I'm a nobody compared to, like Bryson. But the fact that someone felt a connection to reach out to me, you know, and the fact that you can inspire someone and tell them to chase their dreams, you know, to me, that's what it's about at the end of the day. And that's just a ripple down effect of everything Bryson did.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing that, you know, he was so generous with his time, you know, signed every autograph, took every picture. I mean, like I said, I saw him for 4 straight days, you know, at the grid, off the grid. I saw how he interacted. And like I said, I mean, I was blown away at Bryson, the person, you know?
Yeah, I mean, he just as could have easily just shown up and hit and walked away. And it still would have been amazing at that, too. But I did see his presence for sure.
Yeah.
Very cool. Nice. Awesome. Yeah, it seems, and I'm hoping that that's a real landmark moment for Long Drive, and we continue that momentum, and we're looking forward to documenting you and the rest of the circuit as well, too. And let's give a shout out to Kyle. You referenced Kyle Berkshire, and still the guy got it done again. Just real quick, explain the significance of Kyle Berkshire and his impact on Long Drive, because he's really becoming the preeminent dominant force, and that the wonderful locks don't hurt either.
Yeah. I mean, you know, first off, you know, congratulations to him. And I have a lot of respect as a competitor. You know, we've had a lot of battles now. You know, some have gone his way, some have gone my way. You know, I think that's the cool part about sport. But he stepped it up. I mean, there's no question. I mean, you saw some of the numbers that he was putting up leading up to the World Championship. He took it to a new level. And, you know, he's one of 2 guys, along with my good friend Martin Borgmeyer, who have actually produced 230 ball speed. And, you know, as a competitor, you know, I love that, to be honest. I think a lot of people will look at that and get jealous and, you know, say stupid stuff. But I love that because it's raising the bar. It's you know, it just made me hungrier to, you know, get back going and go back to the drawing board and figure out what I can do different to essentially biohack my body into going faster. You know, that's what I love about this is we're literally the Formula One of golf, and we're kind of pushing the limits of, you know, seeing how far the human body can go, which is awesome. So, and he's so young. I saw he was inducted into his high school Hall of Fame this weekend, and I saw he was a 2015 graduate.
Oh, no.
I kind of laughed. I'm like, holy crap, I didn't even realize he's 7 years younger than me. I got to be so you know, he's gonna be along for a long time, but you know, fair play to him. You know, he kept raising the bar, and I'm excited to come after him. You know, back in May, I was putting up I was right around, you know, 227 was kind of where I was topping out. So, you know, part of me wonders if I didn't get hurt, where I would have been. But, you know, the circumstances presented themselves in the way they did. So it's time to go back and chase down, you know, Martin and Kyle. And Justin James had an awesome performance too. So Justin is a co-contributor on the YouTube channel, the Hit Bombs YouTube channel. And there was a fire in him that I haven't seen as a competitor. You know, you can just tell, like, that's what I mean by the intensity on that tee box for that final 16. I mean, he was, he's kind of a calm and cool collective guy, but like I said, it was like battle out there. So
definitely. Yeah, love those group of guys too, and we'll shout out our mutual friend Wes Patterson, who came on the show recently as well too. He had himself another great week, so it's good to see you guys all out there in great form. I'll ask before we get to your plans upcoming and what your future looks like. So you said you spent some dinners with Bryson. I'm sure everyone's riddling around their head and they're wondering: is he really eating the several thousand calorie meat and potatoes like we've all heard, or is he eating normal dinners with everyone else there?
It was pretty normal. Not a veggie guy though, believe it or not. Okay. No veggies. Pretty much just we ironically we did hibachi 4 straight nights. Me and Martin Borgmeyer, we did a lot of traveling this summer, and our go-to was Asian on the road. So that's what we kept to that theme in Mesquite. You know, Bryson was there. You know, basic hibachi meat. Some type of protein, rice. He did have some protein shakes there. So there was some Orgain protein shakes.
Yes, love it. Staying on brand. So, love it. Okay, good.
It wasn't anything crazy. He actually, I'll be honest with you, he looks lean. He looks leaned out. I mean, he definitely looks a lot more chiseled than when he won the U.S. Open. I think he's probably down about 10 to 15 pounds from what I kind of gathered. But, I mean, he looks good. He's fit. He's he's very disciplined about his body. Every night he was in the gym doing some stuff, not necessarily, powerlifting or anything, but just, general maintenance of the body, which is required, at the highest level, So, but like I said, that aside, I expected all that stuff from him. It was the person that I was blown away with.
Love to hear that. Josh Koch, thanks again for hopping on. Let's quickly ask what your future holds now. I know we had the gear down and the gear up this summer as we got ready for Worlds. You had a great showing now. Are we going full throttle moving through the fall and winter months? Or are we planning to take time off and address that surgery? What's your plans looking like for the immediate future?
Yeah, so honestly, as far as the surgery goes, I'm obviously going to try to avoid it. I paid my deductible this year in doctor costs.
There you go.
So if I was going to have it, it would be nice to have it by the end of the year, just so I don't have to pay those deductibles again next year. But like I said, I'm going full steam. I kind of am treating that 3-month break period I had as my off season, and it's very simple. 230 is the number, and we're going to go after that, and we're going to throw everything we have at the wall. We're doing a lot of things this week. I met with a nutritionist that does a lot of stuff checking hormone levels, for example. So I'm throwing everything at the wall in terms of trying to figure out what I can do to get this body going as fast as I can. I've always said if I hit 230, ball speed 160, I'd be content. I might call it from there, but I don't know. I said the same thing with 150 miles an hour, and once I hit that, all I did was get hungrier. So, but the fire is lit right now. I'm hungry. Starting my off-season program tomorrow, and like I said, 230 is the number. Nice.
That's awesome. There's always a new Everest with you long drive guys. It's a constant quest, and I love that. The Formula One of golf, indeed. It's Josh Koch, world long driver. Make sure to follow him on social. It's hitbombs.com. Josh, great showing in the Worlds. Looking forward to seeing more high placements and some wins coming soon your way. Thanks again.
Appreciate it.
And we're back. Great chat there with Josh.
Yes.
He's real tight with Bryson. I think that's awesome. And especially like Bryson eats food just like you and me. Goes to hibachi, gets the good stuff, and then brings a little extra on the side there with his drink.
Shout out to the sponsor, Orgain. You got to work the sponsor in there, of course. I appreciate that fun little tidbit there. It was cool to hear that perspective from Josh. Spending the week with Bryson, we saw a lot of headlines around that story, but the bottom line is this. Whatever you think about Bryson DeChambeau, on the course, off the course, anything like that, what he did there for long drive was really awesome, giving that sport an extra exposure that it needs. That is a really, really cool sight to see if you're a sports or golf fan in general. I love what Josh and Wes Patterson and all our buddies and the Swingman are out there doing for long drive, and it was cool to see Bryson support that.
And if you like that interview, plus everything else we do on this podcast, leave us a rating, ideally 4 stars, a thumbs up. Whatever is a really good rating is what we want you to do. If you don't like us, then just hit the negative rating button twice.
Yeah, it's fine. We can take a little beating every once in a while. We just like that you're here, and tell your friends about the podcast and tell us what you like most or what the funniest part is on Twitter. I'm at Course of Life 1 and you're at MWRINC.
Alex, let's do something we haven't done in a while. Let's do a childhood throwback.
Oh, man, that's exciting. It's been a while. This a forgotten segment in Course of Life here.
Yeah, every once in a while we bring back out of shadows.
Our childhood a lot, but not quite as directly. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
as we should.
That's true.
What do you got?
I don't know if you saw this. I posted this on Twitter where I told you I'm done with this podcast. I'm over it because I'm going to now do a podcast where I talk about nothing but the Balloon World Cup.
Nice. We're going to clip that part where you just said, I'm done with this podcast too. We're going to release that to the masses as well. Breaking news. Breaking news. Listen to this podcast for more information. Okay. Yes, I saw this tweet. Thank you for bringing this up. Totally a game from my childhood. Keeping the balloon up, around the couch in your living room mainly. I feel like that's where that ended up getting played. I mean, the sad part of this all is I was an only child, so I ended up playing this game, me versus myself. It got very competitive at some point.
You always let yourself win, right?
There was that thriller, that quadruple overtime thriller from 1995. I can't get into that because that was a tough day for myself, but I won in an amazing fashion there. But yeah, keeping the balloon up, what a pastime that I haven't thought about in decades. How do you think you would fare in that game today, now in your old age? Could you keep up with these professional athletes?
Look, I don't know if you saw the video, but I was exhausted about 10 seconds in just watching these people run around in this room that they created with a sofa and a car in there, obviously a sponsor.
Knocking tables over and everything. Yeah.
I mean, oh my God, this was exhausting. Almost as exhausting as like competitive tag, if you've seen that too, where it's just they're just running all over the place.
That hurts my heart. I can't watch that close competitive tag videos. It literally hurts my heart. I can't do that.
The one thing I will say about the Balloon World Cup that I appreciated is that they were all wearing helmets. I don't know if you noticed that. So they were protecting their heads if they were to dive at something and they get ready to hit their head on something. So that was really nice. And while the United States, which I guess was where a lot of this started on TikTok, was some two Americans doing this on TikTok. The Americans didn't win. Instead, Peru won this inaugural event.
Okay, so you're saying there's room on Team USA for some newcomers to shake up the game of the Balloon World Cup, right? Because
that's what I'm saying. I'm waiting for the American championships, right? Just like we do for everything else to determine the American team. We need a national Balloon Cup championships.
Well, see, now my head's spinning. Who's the athlete that we can get to rep Team USA? My first thought is you get like a real short running back, like a Darren Sproles or a Tyreek Hill or something like that. Mm-hmm. They're low to the ground. They can move pretty quick in small spaces. That's who I'm thinking we recruit for something like this.
I mean, the video of this looked like two scrawny guys.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't really look like athletes. They looked like sprinters or something. It's people that can move around a lot. So,
I like that. The Balloon World Cup, this week's childhood throwback. Good stuff. All right, let's talk some football, but I'm going to start off on a good note because it was all very bad, but the beginning of the weekend was very great because I made stop 2 of the Texas Tailgate Tour here in Austin.
You did. And that breakfast sandwich that you posted, I'm still drooling over it.
Yeah, and I got to be honest with you. I thought there were going to be a million more tailgate content options for me to show you, but last second, they moved that game to an 11 a.m. kick, and that affects a lot of the tailgate schedule here in Austin. It's tricky with that 11 a.m. tailgate. It's pretty early, so I knew it was immediately going to be a Schultz Garden breakfast and beer scenario. So I got there around 8:30 or 9, got lubricated for the game, but most importantly, I had this wonderful bacon, egg, and cheese breakfast sandwich, which was just the perfect fueler for the day when you got an 11 a.m. kick. Smoked bacon, Mike, with some cracked pepper right on top, fresh eggs, and just a crap ton of cheddar cheese on a big, smothery, buttery, bulky roll. Like, there's few things that have hit the spot more than that did on Saturday morning. It was amazing.
I mean, was there any additional sauce game going on in this? Because sometimes a little extra something on the breakfast sandwich just takes it over the top.
In theory, I could have. I did look over quickly, and I wish they had maybe some hot sauce or barbecue or something wild to go crazy with it, but I did not. But it did the job as needed on Saturday morning. Unfortunately, from that moment, the weekend went downhill from a football perspective. I walk in the stadium and the Longhorns blew one to Oklahoma State, and my college bets were not great either. It was a 6-8 Saturday. It was a day long struggle on Saturday. Immediately after that amazing breakfast sandwich. That's the moral of my bet there.
It was a rough weekend. It was a rough weekend for everybody.
Yes, it did. It continued into Sunday. Double loss, triple loss. My wife's Bears, your Giants, my Patriots, all taking tough L's. Wall to wall. Football did not treat the crowd very well out there. If you do want to follow my college picks in the future, though, I am still above 500 this season on my picks at Course of Life 1 on Twitter for my card every Saturday.
Let's move past the NFL and let's talk about Major League Baseball, because while my Yankees are contemplating jettisoning their manager, I am all in on the Atlanta Braves.
Oh, look at you picking up the local baseball team.
They're my local team. I'm rooting for the Braves.
Yeah,
it's all right. It's not 1995 anymore. I don't need to root for the Yankees in the World Series over the Braves. So we're done there. So, I'm all in on the Braves here.
Yeah. Shout out to Tom Glavine, John Smoltz, Fred McGriff, Andrew Jones. Remember those throwback Braves names from their glory days? They're trying to rekindle a little bit of that with who they got now.
Chipper Jones, man. Chipper Jones. You're missing the biggest star there. Chipper.
Yeah. Shout out Chipper.
Come on.
Good times, good memories, the throwback Braves. But yeah, they're back in the Final Four playing the Dodgers. Familiar faces all the way around outside of Atlanta, really. I'm anticipating wholly that we get this Red Sox-Dodgers rematch because it feels like that's been every World Series for like the last 20 years, even though it's really only happened once. That would be nice if the Braves shook things up and got in there instead of LA.
Wouldn't it be interesting? A Red Sox-Braves World Series would be interesting. I don't know if they've ever met in the World Series, but of course the Braves used to be in Boston. So
shout out to your baseball history moment of the day. They were the Boston Braves way back in the day. Back when the paper was a nickel, milk was a dime, and bread was a quarter, right? Something like that. So there's your history lesson for the day. Hopefully we do get that Boston-Atlanta. Thank you for that perspective. We can get the Dodgers rematch out there. I like that idea.
I'm looking out for you. Let's hashtag always end with food.
Yes, brought to you by our friends at Tosi Bikes. They make these Tosi Super Bites. We love them on the golf course or off. It's a great healthy snack on the go. And that new flavor, they got the peanut dark chocolate. They've got the cashew, the almond blueberry. But how about this PB&J Tosi Bite? I'm going to have to get a box of those, so try that out. Promo code COL20 for 20% off, or head to tosi.com/COL. It's that time of year, Mike. It is late October. You know me. I am a sucker. I'm the biggest basic bitch you can find when it comes to pumpkin spice season. I had a moment on Sunday where I had carved my first pumpkin and I was eating pumpkin seeds and a pumpkin muffin while I sipped on my pumpkin iced coffee outside. I mean, that is as basic as it gets this time of year.
I don't have a good insult for you, but just insert one here that you think is appropriate.
Yeah, I've gone way over the line. I'm way too into it. I know, but it's fleeting. There's only a couple more weeks of this, really. As soon as I flip the calendar in November. Come
November, December, are you going to be a basic bitch for peppermint mocha? I mean,
yeah, I will be.
Where does it end?
I started early in November. So basically, I have 3 to 4 months of being basic. That's the way I've kind of calculated this right now. So we're right in the thick of it now. And that's where I sit as we sit about a week or so away from Halloween. What was on your food agenda this past week?
So this week, actually, I made a trip for Always End With Food, our food podcast. A little meta, talking about the food podcast during the food segment. But so I made a trip out to the Back in the Day Bakery here in Savannah to interview Cheryl Day,
I heard a little about
who is actually so she's her bakery here. She's got a new book coming out next month. So we talked about her new book. I talked to her about how I made her scallion and cheddar cat head biscuits from that book. Which, spoiler alert, they are incredibly good.
That sounds intricate. I love that.
Yeah. So looking forward to sharing that conversation with her later on Always End With Food. I think we're looking right now on a next month. So we'll be talking about it next month. Her book is coming out sometime next month as well. So stay tuned for more about that. You're not going to want to miss it. It's a really awesome conversation I have.
I love this little behind the scenes content from Mike.
And shout out to my wife for coming along with me and helping me with the audio. She needed a little break from all of her work, grading papers and everything. So she came along with me and helped me record.
Yeah, if you're in the content game for any period of time, you know that your significant other is the production assistant you needed that you never knew you had or needed. So shout out to the wife for getting it done for us and helping us do the course of life as well, too. And Always End With Food, like you said, coming soon. So that's the wrap on this week's episode, but we will see you all next week.